みなた。またいいのぶなだ。
遅くにいらしても温かいコーヒーを。必要なのはコーヒーではなく穏やかな心です。
受けて立つ。やっへっはっはっへっさっこの気を逃さん。刀はもう鞘だ。無意味なあがきで受けて立つ。はっちれやせいさこの気を逃さん。はっ耐えてみて。無意味なあがきです。この気を逃さん。へっはっやっやっ刀はもう鞘だ。攻撃続行。へっ
私を
な
火力何やら
あんた
バイトン様
一切のお前背中。
今日の占いは二強を示すべし。今日の占いは二強を示すべし。 続々入荷。寄ってらっしゃい、見てらっしゃい。
Okay, got my dailies out of the way, now let's get back to the story. So I think I'm third, in theory I'm a third of the way. I did the first third of the quest, and then this is me starting this is on the second one. I'm not sure how far I've gotten in. I think I'm just barely in it. So I don't think I've done like the combat portion of it. It's just purely the communication. But one thing I did find interesting is that they mentioned Mockingbird even back then, which, I mean, makes sense because Lycaon was part of Mockingbird. But I didn't realize that there was this much foreshadowing even as far back as now. Oops. You know, like, I just assumed Mockingbird, like, popped up. They're like, oh, okay. You know, here's a new patch. Here's a new part of the world. You know, here's some new factions. You know, like just how we didn't really know about Astriel, even though they might have had her picture out before. I do know when she came out, they had posters of her. I don't know if those posters existed before, so like they just made like they already knew Astriel was going to come into existence. But I do think there was like references to her. Maybe that's hard to say. Like, yeah, it's been so long. Sweet aside. So yeah, so I was surprised because I thought, like, you know, when Vivian and Hugo first appeared in the Astrios thing, like appeared there, I thought that was like the foreshadowing. It's like, oh look, there's them. And then they had the drip marketing for them, and they're like, oh okay, they're from Mockingbird, interesting. And then of course they had the auction where Hugo, you know, stole the thing, and Hugo and Vivian took more of a active role in the story, and I thought that was like, I thought their foreshadowing was just them at Astriel's thing. I'd be like, ooh, like who are they? They look unique. And then when they did the drip marketing, it shows their faction in the background of the image, and it was Mockingbird. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know who they were. And then they did the whole story, and then we actually learned about Hugo's past, and obviously Hugo's past had a lot to do with Lycaon. But at this point, I hadn't done Lycaon's character quest, so I didn't realize. Because like some character quests don't really go too far in depth with their background, but just is more about interacting with the character. Like Coleda's one really didn't have much about her background. It was just more about like the investigation she was going through at the school. But to be fair, we did do a lot of we learned about a lot about Coleda's background as part of the actual main story. So it's not surprising that her thing wouldn't go into her background because we already knew it. So I was surprised. So I didn't know exactly what I was to expect. So the fact that they're bringing up Mockingbird in Lycaon's character quest, which had to have been many months before Astriel appeared, and so we actually saw members of Mockingbird, i.e. Hugo and Vivian, is pretty cool. I do like the foreshadowing they had here. Black Fold, Piping Hot Soup, just what you need. Yeah, and it just throws into sharp relief how kind of shit Wuthering Waves is comparatively. Because, like, they just don't foreshadow because they clearly don't know anything. Like, their attempt of foreshadowing is the patch before Renacida came out they mentioned Renacida by name. They were like, hey, Rover, you can go to any sort of country like Jinzo or Renacida or others. I'm like, great, awesome. So this is literally the patch before Renacida, and that's when you know the name of Renacida. Like, literally no name mentioned or reference to Renacida before that patch at all. Like, we never knew the names of any of the other countries that existed in the world. And only the patch before Renacida did we actually get name dropped of what it actually is going to be called. It's just like, wow, it is really shit foreshadowing, you know? Whereas in this, it's like, yeah, we learn about Mockingbird many months before any of their characters even show up. Although I'm not 100% sure. Because like, I'd have to double check the release schedule for this. Because like Lycaon's character quest is not one of the first ones. It's like the 5th or 6th one. So it's pretty deep into it. So I can't remember how many character quests exist when the game first came out. So like I think there were a few that came out at the 1.0 release. But Lycaon's character quest might have been like a 1.2 type thing, and Astra might have appeared in like 1.3 or 4. So I mean that would be about a patch before. But like there is a difference though. There's a difference between foreshadowing a group that will have just a random group that will be a new faction of the city that is going to get expanded later, and foreshadowing the entire fucking country. It'd be like never hearing the name Inazuma in Genshin until Kazuka's prologue quest for Inazuma. Like we'd never heard, like they never referenced it at all, which is like, of course, it's not what happened. They referenced it long before. Obviously, we learned more about it in Kazuha's prologue quest because it's like, shit, this is prepping us to go there. But yeah, so that is meaty, not greasy, and not spicy. That's probably this one, right? Oh, what? Really? I don't know. Like, I don't know what bone broth. It's like, so I guess if it has meat in it at all, it's greasy. Because I don't know. Like, does bone broth noodles? Does that have meat in it, or is it purely just noodles in a bone broth? Which is like, I wouldn't consider bone broth as meaty. Like, sure, bones come from meat, but I wouldn't say it's like, if I feel like eating meat, I'm not going to be like, ooh, could you give me some bone broth soup? Could you be like, oh, I feel like eating some meat. Could you get me some beef flavored ramen? It's like, no. Like, even beef flavored ramen still doesn't taste like meat, But yeah, so yeah, I do like it. I think MiHoYoda has some really good writers, and they are they're able to they're good at writing and planning for the future. Like Genshin was really good at doing that. They had a game plan for the general outline of their story from before the game even released. This game, I mean, to be fair, this game didn't really reference this location at all until it came out. So you could say, well, there was no foreshadowing for this. True. We didn't know we were going specifically here. Even in the patch before this, we met Yishuan. She did help us when we were purifying Vivian, but like she didn't even like reference this location at all. Although to be fair, she wasn't stationed in this location either. It's like, oh, once she realized that she was going to train us, and then we got those pictures of our master that we. Then we got some pictures of our master that we were told from here. That's kind of when we moved our when Yunkui Summit, maybe not moved their operations, but at least moved a fraction of their forces here to restore it. Which is like, so there was no foreshadowing for that, but there's been a lot of other foreshadowing, and it's not like you have to literally foreshadow everything, right? Like, I know I'm criticizing Wuthering Waves for not having it, but it's because they never have it. Like, ever. They've never foreshadowed anything. Everything they've done is like, the earliest anything's ever mentioned is like the patch before, perhaps. Oftentimes never. Oftentimes not at all. And at most, the patch before, where it's like, oh, hey, this might be what happens next. They basically write the story in a very modular fashion, where it's like, cool, we need to make sure that each chapter reaches a conclusion, because obviously if you don't reach a conclusion in that chapter, or in that patch, I mean, you have to, have enough foreshadowing for the next, like, make it cliffhanger. You have to be like, okay, we're going to end here, and ooh, what could happen next? We have to, lay a little breadcrumbs to give people an idea of what's going to be next. And because they can't do that, they're just like, nope, let's just wrap it up. Let's make sure that every patch ends in a reasonable conclusion so that we can just basically start fresh from each patch, write a story that fits it. It's like even the Sentinels patch, right? Like, before that patch where we fought the Sentinel, where we fought Cartithia, we never... Like, they showed Cartithia, right? In the previous patch, they showed the little elf girl, but, like, they didn't provide us any information. Like, we didn't know who she was. We kind of guessed she might be we kind of guessed that she was the Resonator with the Sentinel. But, like, it seems like she was the Sentinel herself, which is kind of weird. Because, like... the thing that we fought was the combination of the Sentinel and the Threnodian, and it was a grown-up Cartithia, so it's like, well, how did she resonate? So she couldn't have been the Resonator because she was... Unless she split a portion of herself off. Actually, no, yeah, I think that was it. She split a portion of herself off, her good self, and that was Cartithia. Tiny Cartithia, but, like, even still, like... we didn't know that at all until the patch up. So it's like, yeah, we saw her, we're like, okay, I guess... maybe that's the Resonator. But the problem is that because they contradict themselves in their stories so much, it's hard to actually like have any foreshadowing, because it's like, yeah, this could be foreshadowing this, but simultaneously they invalidate stuff they've previously said in the story by saying incorrect things later. So it's like, yeah, she could be this could be foreshadowing, but they could just completely ignore it or say something completely contradictory in the next patch anyway. So it's like, there is no foreshadowing because every potential foreshadowing could have just been a writing mistake right from the get-go. Or, either it was a writing mistake from when it was written, or they make a writing mistake later that invalidates it. So it's just like, it's hard to be excited about a story like that, where you're just like, is this thread gonna be mean anything? Or are they just gonna cut it in the next patch or completely ignore it? And you're just like, well, what's the fucking point of having it then, right? So yeah, it's definitely ruins I would say just the general gestalt about the whole thing is that it just ruins the immersion, right? It's hard to get immersed in a story like that when you're constantly being reminded that it's a story, or that the writers don't know what the fuck they're doing, and you're constantly being confused by questions that the game is telling you two different answers for. Where they're like, hey, we're going to refer to the Black Tide as this, but like, you refer to the Black Tide as this, but Black Tide couldn't have been that, because the first Black Tide was when the Threnodian corrupted the Sentinel. And there's no way in hell that happened 20 years ago, because that's way too soon, and people would have fucking known that, right? Because like the whole point was the Sentinel was always this like Pegasus thing, and the Threnodian was a sea monster, and so the Order of the Deep has a statue of basically a hippocampus, something with a horse front part of the body and a little fishtail type thing, or like a mermaid-like tail. Except they also give it wings, so it's like a Pegasus, but the back half of it is a sea creature monster, like sea creature tail, which is very much like a hippocampus. But either way, like that's the statue that the Order of Deep, and it makes sense because it's like, oh, okay, so that's the combined Sentinel thing. So it's like clearly the Order was formed after that, which coincides with what they say in the stained glass, where it's like, yeah, after the first Dark Tide, the Order came into existence. And it's like, oh, okay, makes sense, totally makes sense. But then every fucking reference to the Black Tide talks about an event that happened 20 years ago. And there is no way in hell that the Order sprang up 20 years ago. You know? Like, there's just no way. Because then because the whole point is that they're pushing that the Sentinel is this hippocampus-like creature. But, like, people older than 20 years would know what the previous Sentinel was. You know? People older than 20 years would be like, I remember when the Sentinel was just a Pegasus. What the fuck are you on about, right? So it doesn't make any sense that the Order is trying to, like, erase history of when the Sentinel was a Pegasus, when there are still people alive who worshipped it in its previous form. Now, it would make sense if the first Black Tide happened like 100 or 200 years ago, and then there just was a recent Dark Tide that, that shook people's faith and was another invasion. And it would make sense that if that was manually caused, or caused maybe by the Resonator or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird because there's like 3 events that happen. One, there's the original Sentinel who's corrupted by the Threnodian. Then they mentioned there was another Dark Tide 20 years ago. Then they mentioned there was an event 10 years ago, which Cartithia, the Resonator, sacrificed herself to stop. Now, I assume that the Order actually did this themselves, and it was the Threnodian causing shit, and Cartithia managed to stop it. But the Order killed her, or she died in the process, and now the Order's taking all the credit for everything. But either way, the 20 years ago event was also referenced as the Dark Tide, which cannot possibly be the original Dark Tide, but they never make a distinction between the two, and they often reference them in the same sentence. Like, they reference them as if they're the same, which they can't possibly be the same. Because, like, we find the true history of the Order in a ruined building with stained glass. So it's like, so in 20 years ago, the building, you destroyed the building but didn't perfectly destroy the stained glass, the only reason you would have to destroy the building? Like, the building looked worn down and eroded. And you're saying, what, that happened 20 years ago? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Also, like, the idea that they're trying to, like, wipe away history from before 20 years ago is fucking stupid. Because people are still alive that remember that, you know? If you have a 30-year-old person, they're going to know what the previous Sentinel looked like. That only makes sense if it was like hundreds of years ago, where there's no living person alive that remembers what the Sentinel was. And so you've just been preaching about the hippocampus-like Sentinel since all people have been born, right? That would make sense. So the fact that they keep referencing it interchangeably doesn't. And then, even then, they're not super clear about the event that happened 20 years ago, which they also call the Dark Tide, and the event that happened 10 years ago. Because they were already saying, like, when the event that happened 10 years ago, because like 10 years ago was when, like, the last Carnival happened, and Cartithia was, like, constantly, like, saying it was a good thing. And so, like, it seemed like 20 years ago and beyond was when the Order really started cracking down on free expression and shit. Which would make sense. Like, they caused another event 20 years ago, and then used the fear of that event to basically push their values even harder, and, force people to conform to what they want, because they're the only ones who can protect them and shit like that, right? Sure, I think it was a gimmicky thing that was done. Because, like, they have a device that can control things. It's like that was the whale was controlled by the Order, so it's like it's easy for them to have just controlled a few tacit discords, have them cause shit, and that was the fake Dark Tide that happened 20 years ago, which the Order then used to gain more control over the people. But then a similar event happened 10 years ago, which Cartithia gave her life for. And that's the kind of weird thing, because they keep just referencing the 20 years ago one as the same as the original Dark Tide that caused the Order to form. And it's like, there's no way the Order could have formed 20 years ago, get a huge temple like that, create a fucking hippocampus statue, and have all this infrastructure involved. And it basically, because, like, if the Order was just formed 20 years ago, it would take years for them to, like, solidify their control and their power structure and all sorts of shit. So it just makes no sense, right? Basically, that's my complaints. Story shit. They're really shit at foreshadowing. They're really shit at foreshadowing. They constantly contradict themselves. They themselves don't seem to have a clear idea of their own story's history and setting, which just makes it annoying to follow because it just feels like you're wasting your time. Like, if you pay attention to the story, it feels like you're just wasting your time because who knows how much of what they're saying is actually going to be true or be contradicted by something that they do later because they're just incompetent. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm not into that. And then I come to the game like this, where it's like, yeah, patches before Mockingbird even came out, like, they were referenced in Astro Yao's. When they appeared in Astro Yao's quest, they had more of a role in the next quest, in the next patch. But even, like, at least a patch before you even saw them, Lycaon's character quest already happened, and so they already introduced what Mockingbird was, how Lycaon was associated with them to a degree. I haven't done the entire quest. I know they've referenced Mockingbird, and I assume we're going to learn a little bit more about Lycaon and Mockingbird itself. So we'll see how much it is. We'll see how good. Yeah, so they're already referencing Mockingbird. And this is at least a patch before Astro Yao's thing. And Astro Yao, I can't remember how involved they were. I do know they were at the theater, and I do know we talked to them. But I don't know if they introduced themselves as Mockingbird at the time. But then obviously later we interact more with Vivian. It was the auction for the sacrifice that was in the suit collar, in the suit lapel, in the pendant, or whatever. And then they were clearly known as Mockingbird at that point. But like, even it's just crazy to think that, yeah, like, their organization was already foreshadowing Lycaon's thing, and we learn even more about how Lycaon and Hugo knew each other and all that shit. So I'm kind of curious. I don't think he's going to mention Hugo by name. I think we're probably going to learn a little bit more about... here we go. Yeah, exactly. I once had a partner, but now we are enemies. That's Hugo. So I didn't think they were going to reference him by name, but I did think he was going to obliquely reference him like that. Where it's like, I'm not going to say his name, but I am going to say that I am basically going to describe him. And so it's like, yeah, so they already knew that was going to happen before Hugo ever even showed his face. I'm like, that's good. That feels rewarding. You know? When you play a story and you're doing this shit, like, I'm doing it obviously out of order because I just got backlogged and I kind of put this on the back burner. And I also stopped playing for like a month or two. I only kind of came back when Jane came back, when Jane showed up. So I had like a month or two when I was gone, which Lycaon's quest might have popped up there, but then because I was so far behind, I was just trying to catch up with all the story and side quests and all that shit. So, and I knew this is the type of thing that I would do while I work out, because it's pretty involved and it keeps me distracted and shit. So, but yeah, so it is really cool. So like, for people who actually like did this when it was current, you're like, oh cool, like, so this is a little more. Yeah, this is yeah. Like, if you were doing this when it was when you were doing this when this was current, you'd be like, oh, okay, this is a little more this is a little more, you know, cool little shit, the cool little backstory of Lycaon, right? Like, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, he was in a Thieves Guild. Interesting. And then you find out, like, oh shit, the Thieves Guild actually like popped up, and they're actually playable characters, and they actually, you know, have their own personalities and shit. Like, if you had played this quest first and heard about Mockingbird through Lycaon, when you know, if Hugo and Vivian introduce themselves as Mockingbird as part of Astro Yao's character quest, or the Astro Yao story, the Astro Yao patch, then you would have been like, oh my god, it's Mockingbird, the people from Hugo's past. And then, you know, then you would have realized, oh shit, he's describing Hugo.
今聞いちゃダメなの？
私とその宿敵は かつとにかく強者にへつらい弱者に無知。今後もし同様の業者に遭遇するリリカお嬢様がすでに絵画を手にしてしまわれたとなると、そうなる前に間もなくリリカお嬢。
Yeah, and I assume we're not going to meet Hugo or Vivian in this one. Although it would make sense why Lilac and Vivian are often talking with each other in Vivian's character to build Vivian's trust. Like Vivian's random trust events that pop up all over the city. Actually, were Vivian and Lilac talking to each other. And since I hadn't done this quest, I wasn't even introduced to Lilac, so I just assumed it was some random girl, right? They're just like, hey, we just made this NPC, and she's going to be Vivian's friend, so we're just going to have them talk to each other. Because, like, Ellen has the same thing, too. Like, Ellen has her school friends, and so for some of her trust events, you see her talking with her school friends. So I thought it was kind of like that, where it's like, oh, no, we just made up these characters. They're going to just be, the friends of this character, and they're just going to be used as a way to kind of, like, open a window into a portion of this character that you might not be familiar with. But no, it's not even just that. It's like, no, we met Lilac as part of this whole quest. And she even had an interaction with Mockingbird, so it even makes sense why the two of them interact, is because they might have interacted as part of this quest. Maybe not. Like, maybe Vivian never actually directly interacted with her. Maybe Lilac was always talking with a Mockingbird intermediary, although who knows, maybe Vivian had to step up. Like, maybe the Mockingbird intermediary was being a little more shady than they should have been. And so maybe Vivian had to step up, reprimand her underling, and that's how she met Lilac in the first place. Although I think she's also the one who writes the fanfic between Hugo and Lycaon, which is actually interesting, because I just thought it was just like random, right? But it does make sense that, one, she did meet Lycaon before, so she's aware of him. And two, she knows Vivian, so Vivian might have described Hugo. And then so she just, took it. Then she just started shipping them together and creating her own little fanfic. God damn, she got really far away. I think Lycaon with his big strong legs would have caught up to her long ago. I mean, that's a pretty classic story. It's a trope that's heavily used in anime and manga. I mean, it exists in American media, too. The parental pressure of just expecting scholastic results and nothing else, and doesn't really care about their child at all. They're only just, like, constantly bugging them about their results and only seem to care about them when their school performance drops. Especially so I assume she has a rich family. And so it's like it is a classic trope, right? Where you have the rich family with the parents who are so busy with their rich people things that they don't really pay attention to their children, and the only thing they ever seem to talk to them or care about is their performance in school, and only if it drops do they then pay attention and reprimand them. Pretty common. It's like, she runs off, like, clearly she's gonna run off, like, you just grab her arm before she leaves. I guess the third time she's run off, like stop letting her run off, like, basically corner her, right? Like, have one person on each side and grab her before she leaves.
ご安心ください。私はただお伝えしたいだけなのです。
私が危ない目に遭うかも。あなたはあくまで パパとママに雇われただけのどうせあなただって塾のあいつらさぞかし迷惑してるんでしょうね。私みたいな中二病。
そのように考えたリリカお嬢様はビクトリア家政の大切な雇い主様でいらっしゃいます。
でもあなた、私の言うことをちっと。
誠に申し訳ありません。中二病なる者への私の理解がただ今後より一層学びを深めていく所存。
普通こんなの誰かに理解させようとするもんじゃないんだから。
別にいいわよ。あの絵はもう買い取ったから、もうすぐ彼らに会えるわ。私は絶対にモッキンバードに入って
Yeah, it seems like what's probably happening is that it probably is like, well, actually, it might not be Mockingbird, right? It could be some people impersonating Mockingbird. So it's either A, they are minions of Mockingbird, but they are acting on their own volition, right? So they're not doing this on Hugo's or Vivian's orders, but they're just trying to make some money on the side. Or they are people who may have been in Mockingbird or may not have been, but are still using regardless, they're still using the Mockingbird name to trick people into doing shit like this. It's hard to say. It honestly could be either one, right? Just underlings taking it upon themselves to do something that the leaders of the organization would not approve of, or people who are just trying to use their name to get the clout they need to do the shit and trick people.
ライカン、モッキンバードとは言っておくけど、私一人で大丈夫だから。キャロットから。
I guess, yeah. Anytime I hear of twin ballet, I think of those dancers, and it's like, Jesus Christ, those dancers are fucking tough. Like, there's no way you can have weapons that could deal with those things. But I guess the assumption is that those dancers are rare, and I think there was like something that I don't know. Was it something that created them? Was it like Rain's existence like somehow birthed them or something, or I don't know. Like, when we beat them as part of the story, are they gone forever? And the only thing we're doing, like, the only fighting we're doing is like once, but because obviously this is a gacha game and we need materials and stuff, we have to fight them over and over again. But like, it's hard to say, like, story-wise, are these things gone forever? Like, when we beat the dancers, are they dead? Like, were they a unique ethereal and they no longer exist? So, like, twin ballads or twin ballets are now relatively safe place. Yeah, so that's interesting. The organization calling itself Mockingbird has called him. He didn't say that Mockingbird called him. He just said, an organization that calls itself. Oh, I see. I was gonna say, like, why the fuck am I not teleporting there? Wait, what? Oh, I can't teleport there. What the fuck? I can't fast travel. Yeah, I can't. They disabled the fast travel menu, and they're forcing us to use the. I'm just gonna open the. Jesus, that's kind of annoying. Why disable the fast travel menu then? Although actually, it's probably because they disabled a bunch of buttons, and back in the day, that wasn't the fast travel menu. Back in the day, it was like R1, open the fast travel. And so maybe R1 would have worked. Or maybe it wouldn't have. Okay, so that was chapter 2. That's surprising. I did not think that chapter 2 would not have combat. This one shows... this one doesn't actually show where the combat portions existed. Anyway, let's... Okay, physical, ice, and ether is the recommended attributes. Oh, I see. Yeah. I thought they were just gonna have us go in, but it would still be the whole thing. Yeah, I forgot we have to dive in at this point to physical ice ether. Okay, so we have to use him. So fuck it. I'll just be my normal Sokaku Ellen. Oops, wait, not that. What's Sokaku? This is. I do think Ellen definitely feels better. So, and actually, I am really curious too about so the Ellen was basically given some of the powers they've given her as part of the Hollow Zero. In the new in the Lost Void Hollow Zero, there was equipment that they give the various agents that gives them like power boosts. And basically, the rework they did for Ellen was give her one of the powers they give her as part of her equipment. Like one of her equipment gives her that little ice blade after her B3. What the fuck was that? Yeah, I remember that part. I don't. That huge slash to the swipe to the side. I don't remember that at all. I thought it was just going to ride Lycaon. That huge seems like a huge slash across the screen. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, that's new.
前方にはまだエーテリアスが数匹います。まずはあの汚物を清掃するといたしましょう。
エーテリアスを片付けときたいから早めに来たの？
さようでございます。執事としてご主人様の安全を保証せねば。
総閣登場！
Yeah, that. What the fuck was that? I don't remember that at all. It seemed to be part. I was holding my attack command. Maybe that was it.
Lycaon お嬢様はあちらです。お話を伺いましょう。
Yeah, and that's the thing, is because she feels ignored by her family and her peers. She's going to anyone who provides her any sort of recognition, which obviously is an easy way for them to get wrapped up in shady businesses, because that's kind of like what these organizations do. They look for desperate and needy children to manipulate. Or maybe, oh, I see. So it's maybe it's because I'm moved.
今しばらく時間が必要なのかもしれませんね。ですが 私は
Maybe it's because I'm using her ice blade. So I guess I didn't realize they gave her ice blade a.
人は何事も自ら経験せねばなりません。
I didn't realize they gave her ice blade another
己が真に欲する
attack
ところを知
animation.
るのですから
I just thought she just did her normal, one to 5, 1 to 4. Miss me. Oh, miss me. Oh, I see. It turns back on after a while. I did see that it disappeared. I was like, oh, is that done? I should use using my skills a little.
食らいなさい。
バイバイ。ライカン、あなたまさか。
プロミス、ご冗談を。あなた様には関係なきこと。プロ騎士様の自称モッキンバードを調査するため、彼らとコンタクト、そして彼らが私の身元を調べた際、私なりの方法でにつきましては、この設定で私と等し
いいよ。
それは上々。偽装の助けとなるよう仮の身分もご用意いたしました。とはいえご安心ください。
俺はコードネーム K だ。どうだ？
K？
コードネーム K だ。勝手に人の名前をオミットしちゃいけねえな。
なるほど。あなた
ヤングな大衆向け文化。Hey you！ なんだよジェミニって。トゥルーな。
お嬢はその名声ゆえにお命を狙わんとする。
Gemini gods. Obviously, Gemini is an astral sign or astrological sign. Basically, it's the twins, which is, obviously a reference to the two main characters of this.
マジか。どうやら俺らはプランはこうだ。ミスってユウたちもどうせシミラーなプランだったろ。
それを
キッドナップだと。ヘイヘイ、言葉には
もちろん。
は、お嬢がということでございます。
ジャッジがファストだ。さすがはセームなホール。
良い知らせをあれで問題ないでしょう。現場に到着後は彼らにご協力ありがとうございました。
ライカンさん、
威風堂々悪逆非道の限りを尽くす有能なエージェントを数多くそうでした。話し合ってリリカお嬢様には私の個人的な経験から言わせていただくと、このような出来事に直面したとお嬢様はこの陰謀をご自分の目で見極めなくては。
それは、
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely easier to fool someone than to convince them they have been fooled. Like, we can tell them, right? Oh, they aren't really Mockingbird, they're just tricking you. But then she's just gonna dig in and say, no, they're the only ones who understand my worth. It's only when they themselves say, yeah, we don't fucking care about you, that she's like, oh shit. If they basically a slap to the face to make her realize what happened.
執事とは
シッ！俺様は
誠に遺憾ながらあなた様の犯罪の証拠は我々のボンプが全て記録し
かくなる上は
ごめんなさい。助けようとしてくれてたのに私感触なんて起こして。
大丈夫。まずはライカンさんにこいつら片付けてもらおう。
よい。選ばれし者よ、最後の審判を下すのです。
なぎ払い。
イエスマイリージ。刑事の日。
モッキンバードが
忠告をしよう。二度とその名を口にするな、さもなくば何人も貴様を。全員でございます。
ライカンさん、
あれからこのポップカルチャーについてこれは申し訳ございません。私
リリカが泣いてるの。
ごめんなさい。
Oh, I was gonna say like, yeah,
私のせいね。
we should have hugged them, but then again, we're only a bang boo at this time.
実はモッキンバードが初めて私に近づいてきた時も私のことを選ばれた人間だとか、それで私舞い上がっちゃって。
大丈夫大丈夫。
リリカお嬢様、誰しも経験のあることでございます。ですがそれでもいいのです。過去を顧み。
ありがとう。実際は悪者。
我々がここで成したことは彼らの犯罪の証拠を抑え一網打。
ライカン。
いや、とてもいいところを申し訳ないのだけれど。
ええ、確かに。
そこの人たち何をしているの？
治安局。
あ、忘れてた。フォローへ入る前に設定した。
ナイスリリカ。こいつらが伝説の。
以上が事のいきさつでございます。犯罪の証拠は
なるほど。すみません。どうしてあなたが謝るの？お嬢さん。
さようでございます、リリカお嬢。
Yeah, definitely. Ellen feels a lot more fun to play. I think she still has the kind of like the gimmick with her ice blade. I don't like the fact that you have to kind of like dodge and do her scissors attack. However, you are now invulnerable when you're doing it. Because that was the kind of shitty thing, is that you have to be charging it up. You'd be like literally standing there for like a good second, charging up her blades. Oh, whoops, it flies. I thought we were going to go Lycaon. You have to spend some time like charging up your scissors before you then lunge in and attack, and you can get smacked out of that. Or even if you didn't get smacked out, because I think he does give you a little bit of stagger resist. Even if you didn't get actually murdered, or even if you didn't get even if you didn't get killed or staggered out of it, you were still taking damage. So like you're just sitting there, getting smacked by a bunch of enemies, but trying to get the ice blade. But you need the ice stars because they're the ones that do your ice. Like they're the one that convert your normal attacks to ice damage. So you need to constantly do it, but it didn't feel super good because it would just be moments where you can't dodge, where you can't counter, where you can't parry, all that shit. So it's like it was always kind of rough. And her damage was a little underwhelming for all of it. So it's like there was a lot of risk. There was a lot of risk and some slight annoyances. Yeah. There's a lot of risk involved in playing her because you have to. It's all about doing her. Okay, so I can't do my... Oh, okay, so I can't teleport. That's kind of annoying. I can't teleport them anymore. I don't... Oh, never mind. She's right here. I thought it was going to be like a Luna Square or something.
こんにちは。これは友達のおすすめでね。実はあの事件が学校で噂になってるの。全部あなたたちのお手柄だ。そしてヒーローは暗幕に帰る。ヒーローになることを追い求める主人公がいろん
I see. So that's how she starts drawing Lycaon, and then I guess maybe after listening to Vivian talk about Hugo, maybe then she started drawing her doujinshi about the two of them.
ありがとう、ライカン。パパとママから聞いたわ。寂しいけどしかなたは。
お嬢様からそのお言葉。
ええ。それじゃあ。
意外に感じられました。
リリカ、元気になって。
ええ。リリカお嬢様があのように騙されてしまわれたのは、ひとえにご両親はお仕事の忙しさゆえ、共に幸い、熱中できるものを見つけられたことで、さて、こちらが今回ご協力に心から感謝を。
どういたしまして。
もちろんでございます。それと治安局に確認したのですが、我々の捕まえた者たちは、
Okay, yeah, so I was right. I did think that they were using their name was far more likely a situation, but you never know. Like Mockingbird has existed for a while. It's not crazy to think that some of them might get it into their heads to try to act of their own volition instead of listening to Hugo or Vivian. But yeah, so they are fake.
やはりある意味で私は本当のモッキンバードを。私はかつて。
ちょい待ち。
まさしくこれであなた様は私せっかくですのでもう一つ秘密を打ち明けましょう。練習のためと似たような文言をそらんじたこともございます。
本当？
まあ言っておきますが私に配慮は不要でよいですか。
この無給の栄光を慎んで。
慎み、勇気、誠実、憐れみ。Oh
yeah, and they even show Hugo. So it's already.
こんな簡単なのも覚えらんないか、ライカン。うるさい。俺の演技はパーフェクトだからな。想像してみろよ、ライカン。どうだ？こいつはことの
空想にふけんのは今回の件を片付けてから。
一足をなあよかろう。昔話に花を咲かす頃。
Okay, yeah, so, and they even do foreshadowing. You know, what I am going to look up when this quest came out in relation to when Astra's, because like Hugo's quest of actually in meeting, like because Hugo actually popped up as like a meaningful character in the auction. Him appearing in Astriao's portion, he just didn't really do much in that. It was really the auction where he actually kind of like started saying some real lines. So if this was, and I'm pretty sure his quest. Actually, wait. Let me just double check what the. Okay, so it was. Yeah, because it was him, then Rina, then Qingyi, then. But like Qingyi came out right before Jane Doe. Like that's why I have her. Is because I came back for the Jane Doe patch. Qingyi was first. So. Let's see, where's the journey? Okay, so chapter 2 interlude was these guys. So this had to have been when Qingyi came into existence. And yeah, chapter 3 was her and Rain. So it was these guys and Rain. And then it was chapter 4. Oh yeah, chapter 4 that's why Bernice's one was next after that. And then only in chapter 5... Shit, actually, even in chapter 5, where's Astro Yao's one? Oh, no, okay, so this is... Okay, so this has to be the auction then. I think. Oh, actually, no, this is when we got our ether eyes fixed. So... Where's Astra Yao's one? Or is Astra Yao's thing separate? Because I do remember this, and this was completely separate from this. Was the epilogue the only time they ever... Because the Fateful Reunion is obviously Lycaon and Hugo, and then this is them fighting each other on the bridge. Okay, blah blah blah. Lion and Ellen. Was that when they did it though? Jesus Hellbringer. Oh wait, no. Yeah. Okay, so we beat Bringer in this one, so the sacrifice had to have been after that. Because the sacrifice core only appeared after we defeated Bringer, and then we realized how dangerous the sacrifice cores were, because I believe Bringer used it. So that's like, look how crazy that is, right? That basically means, oops, wrong one. That basically means this has to be when Qingyi's character quest existed. In this chapter 2 interlude, right? Because there she is. There's the two of them, so I believe this is our introduction to the two of them. Yeah. So that had to have been when her character quest came into existence. Which is so, and Lycaon's character quest was before hers. So they had that foreshadowing, like 2 or 3 because each one of these chapters is at least a patch away. I think chapter 0 and 1 came out in 1.0. Chapter 2 came out in 1.1. I think this chapter 2 interlude is 1.2. I don't think it was chapter 2 and interlude combined together. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so if this is where Qingyi's quest came into existence, even if this patch released all 3, Lycaon's, Rena's, and Qingyi in one go, this is still chapter 2, and Hugo only really became a playable character, or really kind of started doing shit. Hugo only captured stole the sacrifice core in this epilogue of season 1. So there's chapters 3, 4, and 5 where he really wasn't super involved. Now I think 5 is when Astra Yao existed. So I guess Astra Yao's whole aspect wasn't a main story quest, but instead was a side quest. It has to have been a side quest. And then Vivian and Hugo did appear in it. So yeah, there's Lycaon's, then there's Rena's. Then this one has to be the 2 interlude. Came out in 2 interlude. This is obviously Bernice, which had to have come out in chapter 4 or chapter 3 when we went to the outer rim. And then this one was Ellen's one, which is seemingly a random one, where it's it's just Ellen and her friends. Then there's Lighters. Then there's Harmasa's. There's a silver. That's the Silver Soldier one. Figures. Wait a minute. Where was Astra Yao's then? Where was that whole Astra Yao quest? Oh wait, not here. Oops. The journey. When the fuck did we interact with Astra Yao? Was it part of this one? The Meltons. No, this is all Bringer's thing, so maybe it was... and then chapter 4 was all of that whole thing in the Outer Rim. Deadly Assault is an unlockable thing, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's Rain's part. Oh, this is why Ellen's quest appeared. Ellen's quest appeared because of chapter 3. That's why it was seemingly so random, is because she was brought back as part of this. And then we protected Rain. What the... Where was Astra Yao's quest? What was it? The Melvin. The twins. Yeah, and I remember Miyabi almost going crazy and shit, but then there was a whole, performance with Astra Yao on her, floating thingy-mabob. Was Astra Yao's thing as far back as this, maybe? No, that's chapter 2. That's Coletta's. I'm not even sure. When the fuck did that happen? There's no record of it. There's no character quest for it. There's no character quest for it. I guess it had to have been an event. Oh, actually, wait. If it's an event, then if it's an event, here we go. I forgot they have events. Oh shit. Okay, so there's the event that probably came. There's Cheesetopia, I think, and this had to have happened during Miyabi's. Oh, actually, yeah, this is that white world that we never go back to ever again. Shit. So where the fuck is I know we did a whole thing with Astriel, where like she was doing a concert and stuff, and there was a concert in the sky, and someone like sabotaged it, and Hugo and Vivian were there, like ready to be the audience members. And it's so weird. I'm surprised doesn't seem to appear anywhere in the. Oh, I couldn't even. Oh yeah, I forgot they locked some of their friendship shit behind their character quest. That was super fucking annoying. Yeah, like I can't even do this until I. Yeah, so for the ones that immediately unlock, no problem. But yeah, for these ones, you actually have to do their character quest to actually be able to build their thing. Anyway, that's beside the point. I wanted to finish Lycaon's one. I did. It's actually much shorter than I thought it was, because I've only been walking for an hour. And I knew I was in Chapter 2 of his 3-part character quest. But Chapter 1 was I didn't think I was that far along in Chapter 2. I thought I'd only just kind of like started it. So I was expecting us to go back into the Hollow for Chapter 2, have there be a combat thing, and then another combat thing for Chapter 3, but it seems like it was just combat in 1 and 3, and 2 was purely just exposition. Which did not take that long. Which is fine. But it is crazy that, you know, in patch 1.2 or so, like 1.1 or 1.2, they introduced Lycaon's character quest, which talked about Mockingbird, even showed Hugo, the young Hugo, even showed adult Hugo with his coin, because that was adult Hugo at the very end, where he was like, I want to meet with you, traitor, right? Even showed adult Hugo, and like, Hugo did not appear for at least a patch. I'm thinking it's more likely 2 to 3 patches later before he appeared in Astriel's quest, or Astriel's event. And then only after that did he appear in the epilogue as an actual kind of playable character where he steals the sacrifice core, and then there's all the shit involved with that. What I find really surprising, though, is that oh wait, no, this is the Bangbu event, which was at the same time. Yeah. So this is the Bangbu event this was going down at the same time as Astro Yao's. Actually, no, yeah, it took us here, right? Here we are. This is, you know, when Astro Yao was doing her. This is when she came into existence. This is when her patch was, and then Vivian and Hugo were like right here. We could talk with them, but it was mostly about Astro Yao's concert, and then how her like manager betrayed her and tried to like destroy the concert venue, which was floating above in the sky. And at the same time, we could go up the stairs, and there was a Bangbu event up there where we had Bangbus compete against each other. I think it was like a rhythm event. Either way. So that gives us a general time frame, though, because this is when that was. So, this is in order. This is the order it came out. So this is Cheesetopia, I'm pretty sure. And then we had Miyabi's event. So Astro Yao's event was actually really close to the end. It must have been the patch before Hugo's event, so it had to have been it had to have been Chapter 5. Or no, Chapter 5 is Miyabi's thing. Unless there was a patch that did not have a story. Maybe there was a patch in between Chapter 5 and Season 1 Epilogue, and that's when Astro Yao's thing happened. Either that or Miyabi's thing was like the first half of this patch, and then Astro Yao's thing was the second half. I'll have to double check. I'll look for the banners, because obviously this chapter 5 has to be when Miyabi's banner went live, and then we'll just have to check the difference between Miyabi. But like Yanagi came out also as separately, so I think pretty sure this entire patch was just Miyabi and Yanagi as the limited characters. So Astro would have had to have been a separate patch. And then, of course, there's Evelyn, which came out first. I think Evelyn first, then Astro Gay. But that was obviously a separate. So maybe there was a patch that did not have a story chapter and was just Astro Yao's. But it'd be in between here, right? So the first time we actually, we see in person, in game, Vivian and Hugo would be between these events. And that's crazy to think that they were already foreshadowing it back here, or even here. It's hard to say, you know. Is it chapter 2? Where Lycaon's character quest came into existence, or chapter 2 interlude? So if it was, and maybe those were the same patch, but either way, it was just like many patches, at least like 3 patches in between this huge foreshadowing about what Mockingbird was and who Hugo was, and you know their relationship with Lycaon, and then finally actually showing them 3 to 4 patches later, showing them 3 patches later with them being playable characters in like 4 patches later, right? Like it's crazy. That's an amazing amount of foreshadowing. Like Hoyoverse writers are really good because they clearly plan ahead. And it's that level of care that makes you, as players, care about the world too, you know? Because if you do delve into the world, and if you do pay attention to the story, you feel like the authors themselves are paying attention to the story. Your attention to the story is rewarded, right? So if you had played Lycaon's character quest back then, and you're like, man, this is really cool, I wonder what Mockingbird is, and then you see the Mockingbird reveal a few patches later, you're like, holy shit, like they were foreshadowing this like 6 months ago. Like, that's insane, you know? Coupled with, like, combined with, like, Wuthering Waves, where it was like, oh my god, they foreshadowed this 2 weeks ago. Like, that's crazy that they were able to think ahead 2 whole weeks. That's so rare for them. It's like, you know, it's just like, it's the level of care. Like, I like stories. So, like, I play these games for the stories. I don't really play it for the combat or the gotcha mechanics or any of that shit. Sure, I can enjoy it, but for those reasons too. But generally, it's like it's the story that compels me to do it. And in fact, that's kind of why I gave up this game in the beginning, is because the story was kind of like bland. It was kind of like just kind of generic and kind of hard to care. And then just the combat was kind of annoying because like they had Ellen as a playable, like as the first limited character, and while she was strong and powerful, attack units kind of sucked. Like attack units just kind of blew. And so combat was just kind of tedious and annoying and not super fun, especially when you can't get like a good team together. And only like later, when I got Jane, was I like, oh my god, combat's actually a lot more fun. Jane is actually really fun to play. Like she's really hot and she's really fun to play and she does a lot of damage and her playstyle is like regular and normal. Whereas like, you know, for Ellen, like you kind of needed Lycaon, but if you don't have Lycaon, that's kind of shit. So you don't have a stun unit. So basically, you were always kind of like lacking stun units, and like the base game stun units were kind of shit, right? Like you just had Ambi, and Ambi was really fucking annoying to use as a stunner. Well, at least I found her annoying to use because like she just never seemed to do too much stun, and like she was heavily reliant on energy, and you just never had enough energy for her. So it's like you never had enough stun. So at that point, I was just like using like Corinne. Oh yeah, and the fact that like I had Ellen and I had Sokaku, which pair very well together, but they aren't the same faction. And I think this was an issue where like you have to share faction or element, and so it's like I needed another ice element, but there were no other ice elements at the time. There were no other ice elements, so I couldn't fit another ice element into the team to have an all ice team. So I had to figure out team members that could match their faction. But Sokaku was literally the only one from her faction for the longest time. Only when Miyabi came into existence, only when Miyabi and Yanagi appeared, did she finally have people that could satisfy the faction requirement for her. So basically, Ellen Sokaku worked really well with Ellen, so you still wanted to use her, but that means you had to match factions with Ellen, and it was the same thing for Ellen. On release, only Corinne were the only other person who shared the same faction. So if you wanted to have all of them have their little bonuses, you had to be Ellen, Sokaku, Corinne. Like, that's the only party you could do. Or you would just lose a faction bonus on the third person. So if your third person, like, so Corinne, just whoever you replace Corinne with, just wouldn't have their little faction bonus and stuff like that. So like it felt like crap. It just did not feel good to do that. And now we have, now I finally like lost my 50-50 and got Lycaon. So I'm like, okay, cool, I could do Lycaon, Sokaku, and Ellen. But even then, by that point, like, the team just didn't feel super powerful. This is before Ellen got her buff. Around the same time, like, I got Jane, and Jane just felt super powerful just by herself. Like, you didn't have to do anything. You could be, like, literally with any other team member. But because I came back for Jane's patch, I also got Shrei, or Xingyi, or Xingyi. I think it's Shrei, I've heard of that pronounced by other Asian people. But I got her. I definitely regret getting her. After playing, I got her because I was like, oh, well, I don't have any ether people, so I don't have an ether team. So if there's ever, like, giving you the recommendation to be ether, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll get her so that I have an ether team. But, like, she's an ether attacker, and she sucks. Like, she just does so little damage. Like, all my other teams seem to do more damage than she does. Because I guess she does also force me to use, like, the only other ether person there was, which was Nicole. Obviously, I wouldn't use the level 20 Nicole. They give you a free, like... Actually, wait, was I using her with that level 20 Nicole? I think I was using her in Hollow Zero, where they give you a max level version of any character you own, so that you don't have to build them, but you can still use them. But either way, it was just like, Nicole is really fucking annoying to use, because her buff for ether damage is very, very short. It's like 6 seconds. You have to do her skill, you have to hot swap, you can do a quick swap to the main character, but then you have 6 seconds of buff before it goes away, which is like not much time at all. And like, and Shuan is like mostly being on the field. Like, her playstyle is fine. Like, it's not hard to do her playstyle. It just feels like her damage is really weak, and it kind of sucks. And that's kind of like how it always was for like attack units. It's like, oh, you're an attack unit, you just felt really weak. Oh, you're an attack unit, felt really weak. Then we finally got Jane, who actually felt really strong. But guess what? She's not a fucking attack unit. Like, all the attack units they gave us were just kind of like, just felt super weak. Even Nekomata was kind of like, Nekomata has a gimmick though, so like you could pretend and imagine that the reason why she's doing no damage is because you're not using her gimmick well, which is that you have to attack from behind to get huge damage bonuses. She has some movements that will easily get behind enemies, so you could do it like that. But, you could imagine that, oh, you're doing low damage, that's because you're not playing her right. Whereas Ellen, it's like, even if you play her right, she still felt like she was doing low damage. Same for her. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong with playing either one of these. I just felt like shit to play, because like, they just did no damage. And then Jane Doe came out and was like absolutely fucking dumpster them. And then like Yanagi and Yabi came out and it was like, and they were like absolutely insane together. And then Astra Yao works well with them because she can just allow them to easily hot swap between each other. And like, actually, Evelyn is the first attack unit that I actually felt like a good attack unit. And then they had, so I was like, oh, I got Evelyn, so I'm like, oh, cool. She feels like she's strong. She actually does do damage. Like, and then so I got Silver Soldier. I'm like, or Soldier Zero, thinking, oh, well, she's an attacker. But I also didn't have that many electric units at the time, so I was like, cool. Now I have a good electric team. But she's actually not that great. Like, her attacks, I don't know, it feels really weak. So I don't know if I just have bad supports. And I think I was using her for Deadly Assault or something like that without Trigger before Trigger came out. So maybe now that I have Trigger, maybe Trigger and her and a fourth will be better. And then she feels super strong and she feels really fun to play. So we'll see. So basically they just introduced more units and it feels more fun to play because when you have more units, you're less restricted and you have more options when it comes to like party comms, and I think the game itself has become less restrictive as well. Because like before, it was like, no, you have to match the faction and you had to match the element, and that was it. And now they've loosened up some of the restrictions for some of the characters, where it's like, it's not that. Like, it could just be like, oh, this person needs to be paired with a support. Where it's like a stun unit, and it's like, oh yeah, to get their bonus, they just need to be paired with a support, which is like, oh, well, stun unit, support, attacker, stun unit, support, and anomaly are a very common, thing. And you can just be, all you need is any support, and there are just so many good supports. So like, it's just a lot more free. So they definitely improved it in that sense. Like the characters feel fun to play. There are some power. The fact that there are more characters now, so that you can have a little more options when it comes to party composition, which you just really didn't have. Like, you were forced to use the 4-stars, and the 4-stars kind of felt like shit in their own ways. Like, Billy actually, weirdly enough, Billy felt the best to play, but he was just so fucking weak. Like, it was just, all the attackers on games release just felt so weak. And Ellen was like, the only reason Ellen was so good is because she was ice, and so many early game enemies were just weak to ice. So like, that was the only reason you were able to beat stuff. It was just, early game was kind of rough. And the story wasn't super compelling. It was okay, but like, it was a little too boring because it was a little too like normal. Like, nothing, sure, the ethereals were kind of like out there, but like, it was like, that was an interesting concept. But like, generally the storytelling was fairly bland and like basic, and like, it told an okay story, but it wasn't like an amazing story. And they had a few interesting moments, but it was just kind of like, it just felt a little bland. And now they've kind of started to ramp up and build up, and now there's a lot more. Because like, we didn't even know about their teacher, right? Like, they only mentioned like, oh, we want to figure out the truth of what happened to Hollow Zero. That's being blamed on our teacher, and that happened like near the end. Like, that happened like in the epilogue or something like that, or the patch before the epilogue, or we finally hear about their actual motivation. So like, up until that point, it was just like, hey, we just kind of got fucked. We're just kind of going along. We lost our proxy business, so we have to restart from scratch because someone stole our identity. So we're starting from scratch. We're meeting some new people, and it was just kind of just like normal interactions between Cunning Hares and Belobog, and just some like corporate espionage and some bullshit. And it's only then, and like, even like the Outer Rim was kind of boring because it was just like, okay, cool. There's like this biker gang full of people who are just pretty normal. Like, they're not like super crazy or anything. They're just like, a normal group of people. So like, it was nothing super insane. And then they just started ramping up. Like, then we started seeing Miyabi and started seeing like the power factions of the city, and now all this, So it's definitely become more interesting now as they've kind of fleshed out the world. It's kind of like, it's just that like boring early It's basically like Lord of the Rings in a way. If you ever read the books, the Lord of the Ring trilogy, the first 100 pages of Lord of the Rings is insanely boring. It's like ridiculously boring. It is so boring. It's Bilbo's party, and then there's like Frodo living in the Shire. He lives in the Shire for like another like a few decades. Like, he lives in the Shire. They go through the ins and outs of like when Gandalf says, hey, get the fuck out of here, bring the ring, go to meet Aragorn in that town. I think it began with an E, but I forget what it was. They go through the process of him selling off Bilbo's house, and like to move. Basically, the whole thing was like, he's selling the home. He's going to move to like Brandywine or something like that. And so he's selling all this place and moving all this stuff, and then actually like moving not really moving his shit, but like selling all the stuff and leaving as the start of his journey. And then he meets Tom Bombadil on the way and all that stuff. But like, holy shit, those first 100 pages are like so dry. And this game kind of was like that too, where it's like, the first few chapters were kind of dry. It was just like, okay, I think it might be a little more fun if you did it now and got good characters, because like the combat was kind of a little tedious as well. So if you had some good characters to blast through that, so you can just kind of blast through the story, then that would be fine. But yeah, early on, it was like combat was somewhat of a chore, and the story was somewhat, not super compelling. So yeah, it is what it is. I think it's much better now. I think its current state is pretty good. It does kind of stuff that you have to wade through the beginning part of the story. I think it's another issue that Wuthering Waves also has, is that like the worst parts of Wuthering Waves' story is 1.0. And it's like, but you have to do 1.0. You can't get to 1.1 and all the rest of the, and to Renacida unless you do the 1.0 story. And that is the most boring, uninteresting portion of the game. Like, it's just told so poorly. and only near the end of 1.0 the story does it pick up with some interesting moments and some cool scenes, but like 90% of the story is insanely dull and just told so poorly, where they just dump a fuckload of terms on you, and it's like, it's tough because like it's a turnoff. You know, people play that and they're like, oh man, I don't want to do this. And like the exploration is just so boring because like the environments are so dull and dreary, and the music is so somber and solemn that you're just like, oh my god, this is just like soul sucking. And then finally, you know, Firmament at least looked a little pretty, and its concept of frozen time was kind of cool, and the music was okay. Black Shore was it's kind of meh. I hate the fact that enemies explode in Black Shore. That was kind of bullshit. But the story was at least a little more interesting, even though there were a huge amount of plot holes in that as well. Because it was like, oh, we need this black hole to power the Tethys system. But the black hole is actually a black hole that's containing a cataclysm, which is like the suffering of humanity. It's like when this cataclysm occurred, we were able to capture up that into this black hole. But now these people inside are basically reliving their suffering for all eternity. And some of that leaked out, and that now we have to replace it. And at no point did we ever get a replacement. Like, no point in the story did we ever actually find a replacement for it. We were just like, oh my god, like most of it was just like figuring out, oh, okay, so this is what's going on. This is what these black holes are. We find the one that's broken, and we go inside, and we're like, oh yeah, this is really fucking broken. And Shorekeeper gets stolen from us, who's going to be used to replace the black hole instead. And we're like, no, we don't want that to happen. And so we fight and manage to grab Shorekeeper, and then it teleports us away. We talk to her on the Black Shore, the titular Black Shore, in like some hallucination fantasy. And when we wake up, the black hole that we were using to power the test system has been replaced by another black hole, which we never knew about. We just, where the fuck did that one come from? Like, and they're like, oh well, then don't worry, this is a calm one. This one doesn't have issues. But it's like, dude, the whole premise of these black holes is they are encapsulating a cataclysm, and these cataclysms only happen around people. Like, they don't happen in the middle of nowhere. They only happen around populated areas. So if one cataclysm, contains the suffering of a shitload of people, all of these black holes that contain cataclysms would also be similarly full of, suffering people. So there is no quote-unquote calm one. And also, even if there was, where the fuck did we get it? At no point in the story did they ever say or show us going to get one. At no point did they say, oh, okay, before we go into there, let's go through our black hole storage location to try to find one that can be used as a replacement. No, it's like we figure out what the black holes are, and then we immediately go to where the current black hole is being stored, like the one that's leaking, and then we dive into it, recapture, like Shorekeeper gets pulled away from us, we go back into it, or go into it like the Tethys system or something like that, bring her out, and then by the time we wake up from her hallucination with Shorekeeper, the core has been replaced. And at no point did they ever say where we got it, how we got it. Like, how is that even possible for us to have one of these things that is not full of human suffering? Because that seemed to be the basis for what they are. Like, yeah, anyway, sorry. I'm getting off on a rant again. There are so many aspects with Wuthering Wave's story that are just completely stupid. Like, really, really stupid. They contradict themselves constantly. They just do not know how to connect scenes at all. They're just like, this seems cool, let's do it. This seems cool, let's do it. How do these connect? Let's just duct tape them together. There we go. They're connected now. It's like, no. It's shoddy. They contradict each other. It's like, and it's super easy. Like, as I said, like, we could have just gone to like a black hole storage facility and looked for one, and all they have to do is say, hey, here's one that's fine, that's not full of human suffering. Which is like, I mean, it's still kind of contradicting what they are at their essence, but whatever. At least we would have said, look, there is one, we found one, and so when we wake up and the bad one's been replaced, we would at least know, well, okay, we must have replaced it. While we were passed out, they must have replaced it with the one we previously saw. But it's like, nope. A black hole that we just never saw, never knew existed, just magically replaced itself and solved our problems without us doing anything. Anyway. Yeah, and that's just one example of the many plot holes within Wuthering Waves. And after so many of them, I'm just like, you know what? I just don't care about the story. I just don't care about this game anymore. Like that's kind of why I left in 1.1. 1.1 was a little like, well, I left in the middle of 1.1, so I finished the Mount Firmament story, and I was like, yeah, it is better than 1.0, but god damn, like this is just. I still had some exploration to do, and like exploration didn't feel fun. And then I heard, so I stopped playing for like 6 months, and then I heard Renacida was coming out, and Renacida was going to be really good. So I was like, okay, fine, sure, I'll come back. And I played through it, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, here's a bunch of story events that have a lot of disjointed bits that don't really make sense. So that wasn't fixed. But I'm like, hey, maybe Renacida changes all that. And then Renacida comes out, and I'm like, oh, cool, well, the environments are a little more fun to explore to a degree. But they've added some other elements which I don't like in the exploration content that just makes it more annoying and not as fun to progress casually. And the story is written just as poorly. Like they've always been able to write good moments, and they do the broad strokes of the story fine, but they are really bad at connecting scenes, and they just constantly drop the ball, don't have any foreshadowing, they contradict themselves constantly, and it's just like at a certain point, if they're not going to care about the story, I just can't either. Like, what's the point of me paying attention to the story and trying to like make sense of the world when they themselves can't even make sense of the world, right? So yeah, I just stopped. Whereas this game doesn't have that problem, right? Maybe there's some elements that are boring or not as interesting, but like at least it is a cohesive story that makes sense within itself. So anyway, I'm gonna go stop my ranting far too long. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you all